I just feel like GRC people are getting kind of dunked on as, nerds or clipboard carrying auditors. Like, get out of here, you don't understand.
They don't have a GRC analyst here, eh, Jerry? Like,
yeah, I mean, this is the kind of shade GRC is getting thrown at it.
That's right.
I would say it's less technical than other dimensions of cybersecurity. It's not technical.
People know that Simply Cyber Academy is the go-to for GRC.
For my money, NIST Cybersecurity Framework is the best approach to security operations and the ability to build an information security program in the world right now.
This is a great formula to keep advancing your goals.
The cyber resilience course is excellent.
Wow, like there's a lot of barriers to breaking down there.
And that's kind of like what my jam is.
Some of my favorite things are GRC myth busting, learning about cybersecurity, and Game of Thrones. If there was a video game that converged those three things, the final boss would be my guest today, Dr. Gerald Auger, PhD. He's the guy who helped me advance my career in GRC by filling the void and making an excellent course about it. He's the founder of the Simply Cyber community with 5 million YouTube views. Hundreds of people tune into him every morning for a daily cyber threat briefing that has an inclusive, value-adding, fun, and awesome vibe, all about good times. And he is encouraging new entrants to help join the fight for cyber risk reduction. If that sounds cool to you, stick around. We're talking about his courses and mine in the Simply Cyber Academy. Jerry, welcome. And how are you, man?
I'm good. And thanks for having me, Steve. Like, super pumped to be here. And it's always interesting when you hear other people talk about what Simply Cyber has become. And when you hear it from a third person, it's always like, wow, like amazing and just really, really, heartwarming that we've been able to like help so many people.
Well, I think testimonials like the one I just gave are not unique. You got 26,000 people in the academy, and your growth, like it wasn't long, you were at 4 million YouTube views. So anyways, it's a real thrill to hang out with you. So we're talking about the courses today, but I've got two kind of topical items that have just come up.
Mm-hmm.
Just this morning, I was watching your GRC Assist Python tool demo that people can check out on GitHub. I think that's so awesome. People say GRC isn't technical, right? But to say, hey, here is a Python script out on GitHub. Go get after it. It's pretty straightforward. I do have one burning question. We can talk about the rest later. But Fabric, also on GitHub, right? You could pipe it right into that for augmentation and creating threat models. Have you tried Fabric yet? And any thoughts on using that to take it to the next level?
So I will tell you, I've seen Daniel Miessler, AI, augmentation stuff and Fabric. And I will tell you, Fabric is like so right on my radar. I have not had a chance to use it yet. But the reason is, and I'll tell you, I use ChatGPT, I use Gemini, I use Claude, and like in Midjourney. Those are great. But for me, when I see Fabric, I realize that it's going to completely modify the way that I do work in and out. And for me, that's not something that I kind of want to skip a stone and have it skip across the water. Like, I want to take time and review it, understand it, and then augment my actual workflows. Like, to me, it's much more of like putting on a t-shirt or putting on a new pair of pants. That's ChatGPT and Gemini. Like, to me, Fabric is much more like almost like removing my arm and putting like a cybernetic arm on. Like, it is a architecture modification to me.
I've heard that too. I've heard like, oh, can my laptop even support, this thing? And it's like, it's not. So here's the thing, dude. Like, if you just start with, it's not as heavy duty as you think, even though it's kind of that capable and hyped up and there's a lot of cool stuff. But at a basic level, to just put a toe in the water and try something, it's like install the client. It was in Python, but they just changed it to Golang. It's supposed to be a really easy install.
Yeah. And
pretend it's ChatGPT, but it's in a terminal. It does have a GUI, but whatever. Instead of typing in a prompt, you have the YouTube API in there. And so just put in a YouTube URL and then say, extract wisdom. And depending on the model you choose, which, by the way, you can toggle and select, you're going to get a fabulous, if I point out a daily cyber threat briefing, it's going to say, these were the key ideas, these were the key quotes, these were the references. It's like, wow. That is not, ChatGPT can do that too if you scrape the transcript of the video, if it has a transcript. But it's just like, one, it was faster with the API key and just putting in the URL. Two, though, the secret sauce is the prompts that you come up with. Like, some of this through trial and error for real power users and a whole actually community of them will really be quite interesting. And some of them are cybersecurity related because they're all security people. Anyways, so it's
No. I'll
yeah.
look into it. And my concern of like, the cybernetic arm, it's less about resource intensity. And it really does speak more to, and people listening to this, if they're GRC people, will totally resonate with this. Like, I like to understand for something like this, I want to understand the full scope, the full comprehensive picture of what's possible and how to use it instead of just kind of like dipping into one use case, because I want to be able to realize a strategic vision of how I can implement this personally, because of what I've heard of it. It is something that I would adopt, and then it would become like very integrated into my daily workflows, both, personally, professionally, and stuff like that. Steve, like, just to put it in perspective, like, I'm the kind of kid who would, like, when you get the Nintendo game, I would read the full instruction manual before popping it in and starting to grind on the game, just because I want to know, like, what's the scope of what we're doing here, because I want all the levers at my disposal, even like the obscure one that's around the corner behind the machine. So that's why. But Fabric is on my 2024 roadmap, and if it's on the roadmap, it's going to happen.
Cool, dude. Well, that'll be great. And then one more quick one. I know we're supposed to get to the courses, but I got my Game of Thrones favorite T-shirt on for the Night's Watch. You just gave a Game of Thrones themed keynote at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. You've brought up before. I'm a big fan. I'm noticing a paradox here. You are making GRC nerdier with Python and your software development background, and cooler with Game of Thrones. And so I just want to understand, how do you do that?
Oh, well, so, I am a GRC professional and have been for years. And, it just, as I've evolved over time, you see red and offensive security people, they always have the coolest tools, the coolest logos, dark hoodie, all that. And then blue in the last maybe 5 years has really come on as like on the same par with cool tools and single pane of glass and stuff like that. And I just feel like GRC people are getting kind of dunked on as, nerds or clipboard carrying auditors, like, get out of here, you don't understand. But I did come up with a computer science background and a software engineering and a technical degree. So I come from that space, and I have the ability personally to kind of see where the technical pieces can get filtered in and integrated into the GRC workflows. Because even though I would say it's less technical than other dimensions of cybersecurity, it's not technical. So for me personally, I'm super, super passionate about cybersecurity. I'm super, super passionate about the things that I care about, and helping people is one of those, fantasy fiction, science fiction, all those things. So for me, like Game of Thrones, like, it's a perfect opportunity. Maybe we'll get into this in the conversations, but like, for me, if you try to educate someone, regardless of what it is, how to make a milkshake or how to secure your enterprise, if you're not vibing with them, it doesn't resonate and it doesn't stick with them. Right. So, if I had said, like, here's 12 lessons on how to make a strong security program, maybe half the audience falls asleep. But if I
PowerPoint, all on one slide. Yeah.
If I talk about, Sansa's journey from, like, doe-eyed girl to the Queen of the North, and how, her journey went through like toxic mentoring and supportive inclusion and harsh realities with the Hound, you're like, holy crap. Like, you can see the metaphors and how they relate. And then personally, it sticks with you. It stays with you. So, Steve, thank you for calling that out. That is a really fun talk. And just as a quick aside, no one knows this, but when the state of South Carolina reached out to me to give this talk to them, I was like, okay, like, it seems very formal. Like, should I do something on, like, the 4 things that you should expect in 2025, 2026 from a cybersecurity threat landscape? They're like, no, maybe something a little bit more. And I'm like, I have a Game of Thrones talk. They're like, yes. That's actually what we were hoping you
for
would
law
suggest.
Enforcement.
Yeah. So it's pretty popular talk, and I'm very, very grateful for the reception I received on it.
Well, I think that's something that I've noticed coming from accounting to cybersecurity, is that there's 2 things here. Like, if I go to a cybersecurity conference, all the topics are like super cool, right? Like, do you want to learn about, red team hacking? Do you want to go to the data loss prevention section? It's like, wow, like, all of these are to fight crime and espionage and war. Like, and there's like when you go to an accounting conference, I mean, it is really cool to be working with diverse businesses, to be a compass, to navigate and make decisions, but it's not like this is the accounts payable track and this is the revenue recognition track. You know what I mean? Like, so like, wow, like the subject matter and your mission in cybersecurity to protect people in the fifth domain of cyberspace, which is a big and growing need, and an existential business risk, is a really cool one to get behind. But then when I tried to get behind it initially, the content was a little bit too dry for me, right? I just like immediately, CISB course, go. And I saw the slide on the server message block protocol, and it's just like, I wanted to learn, I wanted to break in. I'd done a lot of studying in my day, but my retention, for the reasons you mentioned, was 0%.
Yeah.
But then I read NotPetya. You know, I read about the stories, right? The books, the cyber canon, and how the famous exploits in SMB, and then I want to go back to that dry slide and learn all about it. But the thing is about Simply Cyber, I think, is it's not just that. It's not just that you're incorporating, you know, the real fascinating power balance and what's going on. It's that you take that dry content that needs to be learned and you do it in an enjoyable way, and you're about good times and inclusivity. And it's just like, wow, like there's a lot of barriers to breaking down there. So, you know, I'm not surprised that you're successful in growing. And I think that this is a great formula to keep advancing your goals. So anyways, that's cool. I bet the paradox will continue. And then I guess with that in mind, I guess we'll get down to brass tacks. We got to talk about the courses.
Yeah.
Since mine's come out, there's been a lot of questions about, you know, I see it in the roadmap, but when should I take it? What's each for? I want to show you that blog post I sent you. But before I do, can you just talk off the top of your head, right? Like, how do you think about them fitting together? And, you know, what should people think about when they're deciding to go to one or the other?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the two courses that we're talking about are at the Simply Cyber Academy, and one is the course that I developed called GRC Analyst Masterclass. And this course is really designed for either someone looking to get into industry or augment their skill set, because GRC is it's like we said before, it's like the less exciting dimension of cybersecurity, but it's very important. There's a lot more opportunities coming up as businesses get attacked more often and resiliency becomes a thing in CMMC. But GRC, there was never really a lot of knowledge or education on that, but that's like literally how I came up. Even though I have a lot of technical background and degrees, and I was a cyber architect for a number of years, like I always did GRC just by virtue of smaller teams and stuff like that. So I'm intimately aware of it. In fact, I would argue that like I am a subject matter expert on GRC, and I love educating people. So literally, I got asked multiple times, like, where do I get GRC education? Where do I get GRC education? I was telling people to go to NIST, which I felt terrible saying because it is the right answer, but it's so dry. It's like that SMB slide you were talking about earlier. So I literally created GRC Analyst Masterclass for that reason. And the one key difference here is that my class goes like across every facet and discipline that you would be expected as an entry-level GRC analyst. So it goes into awareness training and policy and risk and audit and some other dimensions of it, which is really, really great because it gives you full exposure. And I would argue it does help people, crush interviews and stuff like that. But also, it will give you the ability to understand what a GRC person does. So if you're a SecOps person or, a CISO or whatever, but you came from the technical side, like you were kind of like a CIO, became a CISO, like it'll give you appreciation again for full scope. And that's kind of like what my jam is, getting back to your question earlier. Like I like to understand the full scope of what it is. And that's why I delivered it in that way. Now, the cyber resilience course is excellent that you developed, Steve. But a key difference is in my course, it goes through all the dimensions. Your course, I have a segment or module on risk assessment. And I do a lab and I have, several lectures on it. Your course is kind of, I almost feel like double clicking down into that section. Now, you do provide fundamentals, which I appreciate because fundamentals are solid. It makes sure there's level setting for everybody. But
very light. It's just touched on. I get it. Yep. Yeah,
but you go deeper into the risk management fundamentals and align with NIST CSF. Now, I want to point out something that's super important. Like of all the dimensions of the GRC Analyst Masterclass, again, it touches on every function. The most important one would be risk, right? So when you're getting paid by a business to do GRC work, the money is really being spent on risk reduction, right? Like that's what they want you to do. They want and just to back up for a second, a GRC person's major contribution to a business is there's so many different threats, but there's only so much money to spend on addressing those threats. So you can't address all of them. You will have residual risk. So the question to the GRC person is, where do I spend my money? Okay. And the GRC work of understanding and assessing risk is how you perform the work to be able to turn around and explain where to spend the money and reduce risk. That's why you have a job. Like that's the main job, right? There's other facets, of course, but your course zeroes in on risk management and gets all up into it. And then, of course, to me, you'll find different recommendations or whatever. But for my money, NIST Cybersecurity Framework is the best approach to security operations and the ability to build an information security program in the world right now. Again, smaller organizations may be better suited with a easier to adopt framework, but for by and large, the main applicable frameworks is NIST CSF, which your course gets into. I have a lecture on it. Your course aligns to it. So to me, those are really the key differences between them. Thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that risk is the heart and center of GRC is a quote I got from you, and it's just the core of everything.
Yeah.
And I really like how you talked about from a career perspective, you start out junior with your checklist and the compliance team, and then you elevate to risk and you learn the questions that aren't on the checklist. And it's like, yes, this guy has cut to the core, not to mention winning the generally accepted accounting principles, best Rosetta Stone framework to align everything to. Regarding small businesses, I could see going to like the CIS top 20 or something really short. But the thing I think they get across in the AKYLADE course about CSF is how it's highly tailorable. You could have a business that decides for this quarter, they're only going to do supply chain management, right? Like, we're actually going to do nothing else except focus on that, like, because it's not prescriptive, you tailor it. But anyways, I guess that does make sense though to just say, listen, there's a list of the Australia 8 things, or there's a list of the CIS top controls.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I think if I share my screen here, we can go through what I'd unpacked and just kind of talk point by point about, how they're similar, how they're different, and see where it goes.
It sounds like a lot of fun. Pull it up. Let's
Are you
roll.
gonna make fun of my accent? I said A. Like, is that like a? Did you notice that? Or?
No.
Okay. All right. I was very self-conscious.
Only if you
slipped out and I was conscious.
Yeah, only if you throw the first stone and make fun of me for saying wicket.
Yeah, that's like a Boston, eh? You got some Boston.
Yeah,
okay,
it's very Boston.
Very noticeable. All right. All right. So if I go to the top, I want to launch or lift my GRC career. Simply Cyber Academy is the best place for GRC to do that. That's known. But which course should I take? There's 3 there, and we're going to talk about 2 of them today. And we've talked before about my roadmap. Oh, here's a picture of it, right? Which starts generally with foundational knowledge with something like Cyber 101 or something like, join the daily cyber threat briefing on YouTube, or you even recommend other YouTube courses after Cyber 101 to get after Security Plus, such as Professor Messer, Slay Security, and Security Plus flashcards. The idea is you're laying a foundation for how to do an information security program, and you'll build from that point. And also to get your inspiration to learn the material, the cyber canon and the stories is pretty fascinating stuff. All right, but then I think in seeing Security Plus at this entry level here, dominate the job postings like we see on cyberseek.org, like it's just kind of the leader.
Yep.
Now it's about how can I stand out from the sea of applicants that already have that? Like, let's assume that was the baseline. Now, it doesn't have to be Security Plus. I didn't do Security Plus, right? There's the Google certificate, which is on here. There's the CC from ISC squared. Like, there's the IANS has one, right? But the point is you'd have some sort of basic Cyber 101 or some fundamentals. Now, I want to stand out to a GRC hiring manager. And man, for me, if I saw CSF, it would stand out to me, right? Because I appreciate what it can do. And yes, for risk work, but you know what? Let's talk about governance. Are my policies comprehensive? I think I'm going to check them against the NIST CSF categories. Let's talk about compliance. I'm doing ISO, SOC 2, Cyber Essentials, TSECs, more and more and more. I think the best way to organize them, as you described in the GRC Masterclass, is with this. So anyways, CSF is an area that hiring managers identified as needing, not being met in the current market. So we moved down here from Security Plus to the Simply Cyber Academy for either CSF fundamentals or GRC Masterclass, or both, or one or the other, because I'm trying to give myself an edge. I'm kind of doubling down on GRC. Or I'm doubling down on the security consultant job profile, like you see at cybersecurity.org, which is in the middle of everything, to say, soup to nuts, the 6 functions to 22 categories, 106 subcategories. I kind of get how to do an information security program. That was that picture there to say consultants in the middle. So that's just kind of interesting. Like, they don't have a GRC analyst here, Jerry? Like,
yeah, I mean, this is the kind of shade GRC is getting thrown at it.
That's right. That's right. So maybe we'll see a bubble change, when you get to 6 million views. But I think we'll get on this, and we'll get on the SANS top 20 coolest careers.
Oh yeah, poster. No, it needs to be there. Yeah, it definitely needs to be there.
Wasn't even a top 5 list. Like, it was a top 20 list. Anyways, yeah. So here it is, and then general thoughts on scope. So you talked about how this is how comprehensively to do the G, the R, and the C. I love that you made security awareness its own thing. And then why are we here? It's to get a job. So you've got a chapter on that. So, very helpful to break in. On this side, it's about the guidebook for information security, as we've described. All right. Here is a student who took the course and talked about how it was a comprehensive entry-level GRC course. And I got hands-on with Fives Labs. And I got a full scope understanding. I think you've described that. The value of CSF, you've talked about this too, the mic drop moment that you had and I watched. You were recorded on the screen, it wasn't live. And I'm like, wow, that really impacted me and helped me with my stuff, as I've described in my blog, in terms of understanding to use that one as the generally accepted accounting principles, or whatever we're going to call it, the overlay. All right. Cyber resilience is a deep dive in the CSF. You talked about it here. It includes a actual certification. And so if you don't have the opportunity on your day-to-day job like I do to use CSF, to use those things, you can still get on your resume, not just as I know about it, I've read it, but I'm certified in it, actually. And we know that similar to Security Plus, in terms of being in NCSP and other ones that go through that really robust process for exams, it is going through that process with independent entities for the exam writing, the exam proctoring, and the trainers, and everything in between, to make it a very robust process that would be recognized by the industry. And then the thing is, though, it's using the multiple choice ABCD, right? And that's not optimal. It's nice to test and standardize, and has a lot of benefits. But I think something that you're going to see even more from AKYLADE is making it more practical and applied. Because keep in mind that the reason it was formed was to bring hands-on experience, like I got in GRC Masterclass. And I think they're bringing it here as well. But the thing is, they are plugged in to make it recognized by the big institutions through this robust exam writing process. So you'll see more about that, but I think that's a little bit different, it being a certificate. All right, there's a whole bundle of things here. I think, in September, we'll unbundle some things and see how that goes, depending on your interests. Okay, so I can't win this contest. One has you as the instructor and one has me. So, point to Jerry, obviously, but I think, you have a unique.
We're on the same team. We're all on one team.
Well,
we're on one team.
Well, I think I'll go from the perspective lens, right? You, underneath the visible above the water GRC piece, you have both computer engineering and SOC. It's like, wow, that's, all of it, and he's the expert in GRC. Me, it's like I'm coming from business and accounting and commercial, software company. And so, maybe that's more approachable for certain people that are coming from business as well. And they'd heard that cyber was cool, like I did, and wanted to break in, but didn't think it was possible. I just think perhaps a different audience there
Well,
would,
yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, I'd also point out just from, the thousands of people that I've engaged with in the Simply Cyber community, there's a place for everyone here. I mean, I've done interviews. There's videos on my channel of, K through 12 teacher getting into GRC, a stay-at-home parent getting into GRC, marketing professional into cybersecurity, truck driver into cybersecurity. So, yes, we have different backgrounds and how we got here. But that just means that we're bringing different, developed skill sets from our background forward, but still delivering on a GRC mission for organizations. So yeah, there's no, you know, prescriptive formula of like do these three things and you'll be able to actually access this skill set or this job role. It really is accessible to a wide audience of individuals.
I think we just had an interesting insight from my perspective. It might have been 2 years ago. You put out a spreadsheet saying, "Hey, everyone, come join. I'm interviewing people from diverse backgrounds. Get on the list, and you might get picked." And I didn't get picked for accounting, but it's like, oh, you picked Heath Adams, like, right? That's a pretty high bar to try to. But it's like, I did get to beach eventually, man. So
well, I appreciate you submitting for the video. That would have been great. Yep. But yeah, we're here now, so this is great.
I think that's what my point is, that you try something and get in, and it's going to be hard at the beginning, and you're going to fail a lot, but you just keep showing up and you keep coming back. And I think that's a key message that you pass on in the daily cyber threat briefing is like, hey, everyone, we're all showing up today, right? Because we're invested and we're going to happen. And I think you've also commented on, and I'm seeing too, a lot of people are feeling very discouraged and challenged by the tough job market out there, right?
Yeah.
And getting a cert does not mean you're going to get the job. It's going to help you get the interview, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're going to get past the ATS, and maybe, if that particular hiring manager is interested in CSF, it's really going to pop out because they hadn't seen that on a resume before. But I think it's about keep coming back. And actually, you've also been very transparent about your own challenges that you overcome, right? And it's you just keep showing up and going, and it's nice to come to
1% better. Sometimes when you see these people who have achieved great, like I have a PhD in cyber operations, right? Like you're like, oh, like we kind of joked earlier about the comparison between you and I, but like that was like 5 years, and I would leave I'd put my kids to bed on Sunday night, and I wouldn't see them until Wednesday because I would work, and then I would do research and dissertation and get home at like 11 o'clock at night. So I'd get home after my kids went to bed, and I would leave for work before my kids got up that day. So, I mean, I did that for 6 months. So like, yeah, you see, oh, PhD, whatever, but like there was a massive commitment and sacrifice, not just for myself, but my family made sacrifices as well for us to achieve our goals and to be able to, have these, career aspirations achieved and whatnot. So yeah, it's work. It's work. But I mean, do you want it? Right? That's the question. Only you can answer.
Absolutely. And that's true for every, career, right? Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think that'd be great to unpack more in the future about, and you do in Jaw Jacking and other channels and your monthly mentor meeting, Ask Me Anything. So that's great. Okay, cool, man. Well, I think we've covered a lot. If I just pick a few quick things, here's what you get out of the course. People know that Simply Cyber Academy is the go-to for GRC. Hiring manager might or might not. They've still got certified ethical hacker on the resume, right? Even though Pentest Plus and OSCP have been around for a long time, like they're still the resumes just keep being copy and pasted and move forward.
Yeah.
And then AKYLADE isn't well known, but CSF is. You get the resume bullets unlocked to put on your resume, and it's going to scan them, and that's going to help. And then also the founders of it, Jason Dion is a known entity, and Kit Boyle. All right. A comparison of the chapters. We've talked about the service catalog of GRC. On the CSF side, you could think of it, while I applied as a GRC practitioner, you could also apply it as an information security consultant. You go into any business, an apple farm, pharma startup, a government organization, a Fortune 200 company, right? You can go soup to nuts through govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and all of the elements inside. And that's how you do information security, lather, rinse, repeat. And then also, it's something that I discovered in this course that was really interesting is that it's more strategic than I thought it was. It felt very business strategy and very accounting-like, in fact, because you baseline your current state, you set a desired state, and now what's our strategy? How are we going to get from A to B, right? And how do we make one that's aligned to business objectives?
Mm-hmm.
So you do things like identify your top 5 risks aligned to the business. Like it's not about memorizing 106 subcategories. It's about your ability to be a consultant and add value in information security is to understand the business objectives that you need to protect and enable and how to align a cybersecurity strategy to that. And it's like, wow, this is more than I thought. And this is really, I can see why it's a good method and scalable and why it's being acknowledged on the world stage with SOC 2 reports now having NIST control numbers from certain companies, or by ISO including NIST categories in its latest release of the ISO 27001 standard. There's a lot to it. I guess you can see more here. And that was everything in the blog. So, I think we beat up a lot of things there, Jerry, but can you think of anything else or any final thoughts for students trying to decide if they should take one of these courses?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, that both courses are completely accessible regardless of your prior experience and background, because they both, your course has the cyber fundamentals, mine has the cyber primer. There's some overlap between them, and there's some, delta between them, which is great. No matter what, here's the thing, if you want to work in cybersecurity, both of these courses are going to be great for you. Even if you want to go on to be a penetration tester, offensive security person, because understanding how the business is thinking is going to help you. Maybe not so much about like, ooh, I Kerber roasted this and I got domain admin. But guess what? If you're going to be a pen tester, you're going to have to write a report afterwards to explain what you did, and like you find 500 mistakes, right? Guess what? Get ready to apply what you learned in these GRC courses on understanding what the risk is of each of those findings and prioritizing them and calling out to the executives who wrote the check for you on what they need to focus on. Because if you're not delivering value, it doesn't matter how many leak hacks you got and how many shells you popped. No one's going to pay you for that. They're paying for the knowledge of helping them reduce their cyber risk, which is at its foundation a GRC skill. I could go on and give examples on the blue side and architecture side and all these other things. But my point is, an investment in GRC knowledge, it doesn't go to waste because it has direct applicability to whatever you're going to do for a business, right? Even if you're just IT and you're not like true cyber, quote unquote, true cyber, like understanding what the approach is to just risk management at its base and how to, deliver context around risk management is going to help you be better at IT, frankly, because, like, let's say you're doing IT stuff and then in comes the engineering team and they want to do remote access to all the things because they want to work 140 hours a week and log in on the weekends and stuff. Well, guess what? There's risk with that. What kind of remote access solution? You don't just randomly pick one. And is it implemented correctly? Does it have MFA? Like all these things that you would ask, you would know to ask, and you would be informed because you'd have this GRC background. This is why I think GRC is so cool and so under valued and over like looked, is because it has tendrils that go into every facet of cyber within an organization and within a information security operations capability.
So Jerry, I think you've described the breadth of GRC and the business focus of GRC, and GRC is the interface of the business. For the past 30 seconds, I've just been fighting myself like, oh man, I don't want to be bursting in with the last word about my course, like I'm trying to one up what you said.
No. I mean, what are your thoughts?
But could I please, I just want to give a preview of CCRP, which is the follow-up to the one that's out now. So the next one's coming out. So here's like, totally get everything you just said about GRC as its function, bang on. Let's pretend you're not in GRC. You might have a need for, or you might be interested in learning from these CSF certs. Here's why. First, in the CCRF course, you are going to learn the NIST CSF inside out. because now you know how to do all the parts of a cybersecurity program. Next, though, you're going to go in the practitioner cert that's coming up for Halloween. You're going to go into any business as a consultant, and you're going to find out what their top 5 cyber risks are. And you're going to figure out who to talk to figure that out and what questions to ask them. And you're going to collect the data, and you're going to make an executive scorecard that says, everyone, you're at this level. Here are the top 5 things you need to do to move the needle on cyber risk reduction. And guess what that brings? Change management, culture. Like, that's an MBA. Like, that is, we need to get from A to B, and I need to consider a lot of business stuff. And anyway, so I think it really even takes you, so one, rotate into GRC and get breadth, and you can take that into your swim lane of whatever it might be. But also, I think, learn those business skills, and that's something that you're going to see more of when this next course comes out. And so I'm excited to talk more about that in the future.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that as well if the opportunity presents itself, Steve. It sounds awesome.
Cool, dude. Well, hey, let's wrap it up. I think went a little bit longer than planned there, but just such a fun topic. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you soon, and look forward to doing this again next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.